I'm Melissa Reeder. Welcome to Conversations That Count. These are candid conversations about the highlights and the lowlights of caring for loved ones through the last stage of life. 83% of people who are currently caring for an elderly, frail loved one or someone with a terminal illness find it challenging to talk about, plan for, and manage this life stage and access the services they need. But my focus here is on the stories, not the numbers. Susie, we wanted to have a little chat today about your dad.
Dad's actually very interesting. He's a Chinese background, so his actual birth name is Ket Wah Tay, Wah meaning sunshine. But when he came over here, he was only 18 and he adopted the name of Richard. Dad's now 86 and he's in one of the Calvary nursing homes. And he was doing very, very well up until 2021 when after mum passed, he got cellulitis in his legs and was hospitalised for 4 days. It really triggered Alzheimer's. After that, his decline has just been fairly rapid until now, where he's really actually now in end-stage care, unfortunately.
Pretty amazing family history and heritage there that you've talked about.
Particularly when I think about it in the context of the development of Australia and the issues about having mixed race families, mixed race marriages. Mum and dad were brave dudes, like
Great,
lived.
great family history and story.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Keeping all that in mind and thinking about your dad at 86 in residential care, what are some of the things that are most important to him right now?
One of the things that is always been in my mind about dad, and also something that we talked about at length, was his loneliness. And one of the things I think that was most important was having people around, caring staff that he could just be with. I mean, dad actually would. I laugh a little bit to myself because dad always go, I'm so lonely, and I was like, Dad, you're sitting with other people. He actually could sit with other people and be happy with that, but the sense of being isolated and not having somebody with him was, that's the quickest way to an early death. So I would say that was probably the most important thing, more so than food or all the surroundings or anything else.
And as you've gone through those last couple of years, Susie, with your dad and with your family, what have been some of the most difficult parts for you, I guess, for you and your family in navigating your dad's care and maybe some of the most difficult parts for him?
My sister has actually been up in Newcastle the whole time, and she's shouldered the responsibility on a day-to-day basis. She's an amazing person, and she's got such a wealth of knowledge uh, and experience herself, being able, coming from the caring profession. I've been extraordinarily lucky that way. And of course, I live further away, and, the ability to be present and, attend both for my father, but also for the wider family.
Yeah.
That's been the most challenging thing, I think. Uh, I think also just watching dad in his decline, any family that's had somebody with Alzheimer's, I read about it and it was saying, it's such a long goodbye. And it really is such a long goodbye. I think the decline is more obvious to somebody who isn't there, on a daily basis. And that's a very difficult thing to come to terms with, and also manage your life in the meantime while you're still living very much. Somebody who's been so central in your life is dying. Plus, your family members around you who are also managing their own life and their own families and their own ups and downs that happen with everyday life. So it's probably
Mm.
pretty ordinary what I'm talking about, but emotionally, it can be very, very challenging. And yeah, I have a greater appreciation.
Gosh, you talk there about the ordinariness of it, but actually that's so important, isn't it? You know.
Totally, totally. And I have
Mm.
to say, and I know it may not, it segues though, is that one of the services that my sister told me about was your organization was Violet. And she said to me, look, they offer this uh, telephone service for counseling, and offered it to her boys. She's got 2 lovely boys, and offered it to me and said, would I be interested? And I said, look, absolutely. I mean, it was then was the opportunity to just have somebody to have a conversation with them. And, it's such an ordinary space that I'm in and such an extraordinary space that I'm in that I felt that having somebody that I could talk to that knew the actual issues that might be happening for me right this very moment amongst a normal life. Yeah, that really that and as I say, it just segued into it that the opportunity to just be able to say, "Oh my God, I'm feeling like this, and I know it's meant to be ordinary. I know that in the next 15 minutes I've got to go off and have a meeting, or I've got to go off and do this, or I've got to be my ordinary self. But behind me is what is, this the burden, and it is a burden of waiting for dad each time he progresses further down the track, being able to manage just the sadness. Some families do it better than others, um, but we don't necessarily have that we don't have the mental, we don't have a structure around our life that is, all the families living together in the house. So when you're small, you see your grandparents die, or they live next door, or they live in the next suburb. I mean, we are so disparate now that uh, we learn on the run how to manage, you know, end of life. That's certainly my experience.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that so honestly with us, Ruthie.
Uh,
What about some of the more unexpected highlights? What have been the bits that might have surprised you
oh,
in a few ways?
totally. I mean, one of the funniest things that my father at the moment, dad's, as I said, he's in end of care, and in fact today they've just called in the priest to see him in a couple of hours. And, you know, you never know at what point somebody is going to pass, but certainly along the journey, I mean, I have to say there was this is a terrible story actually, but the last time I was up spending an extended period of time with my father when my sister was actually away, dad actually suffered a stroke, and it happened right in front of me. Um, and the nursing staff were amazing. They were totally amazing. But when we finally got him back into, a space where just before the ambulances came, dad suddenly became extraordinarily lucid. And he has not been lucid for several years. And we had a really lovely conversation.
Pretty precious memories and moments too as you're going through all this.
Totally. But one of the things,
Yeah.
as I said, you really, I said to myself, you must be present to this. As difficult as it is, you must be present. And I think that's the challenge, is being able to turn up, and keep turning up. Because it's actually at the end of the day, it's actually not just for dad, it's actually all for me. So that I do have these memories. I do have, these things to look back on and go, I I I lived that part of life with dad as best I could, and these are the lovely memories that I have. Yeah.
Do you have any advice? You think about the number of people that are going through this right across the country today, or maybe the people that aren't going through this right now, but they know it's ahead.
It's also personal. I guess that's the thing I would say to everybody. It's so personal, and my heart goes out to you if you are yet to go through it. Um, let's be really kind to yourself, and also be kind to the people who are around, because everybody, despite what we might think, everybody's going through the same thing. And, just think twice before if you can take a second before you react, that will help. And I think also it's okay that if you feel you can't turn up because it's just too much, I think that's perfectly fine too.
Susie, really, really, really love chatting with you. Thank you for taking a few minutes to talk about what's happening for you and your sister and your dad. We'll be
Yeah.
thinking of you over the
Thank
next
you.
days, couple of weeks. It sounds like, your dad is at the very end of his life, so we're sending all of our love and strength your way.
Thank you. And thank you for opening up these conversations, which, if we had more of them. Yeah. Thank you.
That's the work, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Susie.
Bye bye.